So if you could excuse the sad background, this is my first video for my channel. I'm gonna be making similar content like this, you know, involving fashion, runway shows, and analysis like that. So if you like it, please stick around. My name is Anthony, and today we're going to be covering Alexander McQueen's Spring/Summer 2001 collection titled Voss. If you don't know a lot about McQueen and you want a background on him, who he was, what he was about, I suggest you take a look at some of the links that I put in the description box below. It's a lot of helpful links that I found give a good idea of McQueen and his work. So hopefully those are really helpful to you, and I suggest you check those out. Most importantly, I also left a link for the runway video itself, and it's only 32 minutes. That one I definitely suggest that you watch before you watch this video. It's a beautiful film, you won't regret it. One of the most beautiful things you'll watch in your life. It's really crazy. So yeah, so once you check all that out, you should be good. And I think I've covered everything in this introduction. So we could finally get started. So before we actually talk about the show itself, I want to go over some context of before the show so that we can understand why the show was what it is. So around this time, McQueen was really getting into fashion. You know, he was rising, he was becoming more successful, more well-known. And as that was all happening, he was kind of losing the people he was close with from the inception of the brand. You know, close friends, stuff like that. They were just leaving the house, and he was working at Givenchy at the time. So they were leaving, and a lot of the people who were close to him described him as being he took a lot of things to heart. So when people would leave, he felt like they were betraying him. Also, with this newfound fame in the fashion industry, McQueen felt pressure to lose weight, and so he underwent liposuction surgery, you know, to change his body to appear thinner. He said that he regretted it because he felt like he lost touch with himself. And that's something that I can relate to, and I'm sure other people who are into fashion can relate to as well. Fashion, as beautiful as it does have a dark side and really can affect your mental health. You're always comparing yourself to other people's bodies, you know, when you see the models on the runway or in ads, and just other people in the industry. There's really an emphasis on being thin, which can be really damaging. And McQueen, he underwent that surgery to change his body, but that didn't really solve anything. The way other people perceive you and your new body is gonna conflict with how you see yourself, because even though you change, you might still see that same body from 5 years ago, a year ago, a month ago. And so the way others perceive you versus how you perceive you conflicts, and that's really damaging. During this time, McQueen really was going through a lot, both physically and mentally. It's really hard to talk about, but it's important that you understand that these are the things that are going on in McQueen's life in the making of this collection. So with that context, it's gonna help us understand the purpose in his designing this collection. With Voss, he wanted to explore and question this idea of beauty. What is real beauty, and whose beauty is it? Whose beauty are we following? So now we can move into the setting itself. McQueen had this idea for the runway to be just this box, and the walls are padded, so it resembles kind of like this, like a mental ward, an insane asylum. And what's really cool about the room was that the walls also had a two-way mirror. So in the beginning of the show, the audience was kind of like around the box, you know, they were sitting on the outside of the box. They couldn't see in. They were forced to see the reflections of themselves for about an hour before the show even started. And a lot of the critics described the whole experience as being very uncomforting, because no one wants to look at themselves. You know, these are people whose jobs are to scrutinize models, how they look, how the clothes look. And McQueen was really flipping that, you know, he was making them look at themselves. And that scrutiny is not so easy when you're having to do that critique on yourself. That was before the show. It was like now where the lights inside the box of inside the runway were off. But once the show started, the lights turned on. So now the two-way mirror went into effect. Audience on the outside of the box could see inside now, but the models walking inside could not see outside. From what I found, McQueen was actually inspired by the room in The Green Mile. McQueen was he was always being inspired by film and movies. So the collection is titled Voss, and I feel like a lot of people don't actually know what that means. I didn't for the longest time until I started researching about the show. And Voss is actually the name of a Norwegian town, which is really well known for being a wildlife habitat and its beautiful nature. And nature is a really heavy theme in general when it comes to McQueen and all of his work, but specifically with this collection. I find it interesting that McQueen is tying nature into this collection because it is really heavy throughout the show. Because if we're talking about beauty, then I feel like you could say that nature is the architect of that, you know, it's the ultimate designer of beauty. So hopefully you have an idea of like what's going on with this collection. You know, we have nature, mental health, and beauty. These are all going to be really important things in the show. So now we can finally go and talk about the show itself. So the show starts off with the lights within this insane asylum turning on, and we see Kate Moss walk out. She's having a lot of fun. She's really in character, which I love. She's going onto the glass, kind of like playing with the audience. We're not going to be covering every single look just because I think there's like over 70 looks or 65 looks. There's a lot. But I am going to try and talk about the really important ones that are going to help you understand the themes. We're going to be looking at a lot of looks where McQueen really has used materials and these unique designs that really speak close to the themes of the show. There are bodices, skirts, and dresses made out of shells, and a lot of the clothes are made out of feathers. I want to jump to look 24, which is this insane contraption. There's this feather skirt and this headdress made out of taxidermied hawks, and they're all hanging around the model's shoulder, but it's kind of like above, like they're attacking her. You see the viciousness of nature. To me, it seems like this cautionary message of be careful of these external factors, because even if they seem beautiful and what you want, it comes at a cost. Like with these birds, they look like they're about to tear through her bandages. The very things that are keeping her sane, you know, that are treating her. With this look specifically, I think it's the most blatant reference to Alfred Hitchcock, specifically his movie The Birds. And McQueen was a fan of Hitchcock, so it makes a lot of sense. So I'm not sure about this look specifically, but I want to get this out of the way. I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of, if not all, of the jewelry in the collection was made by Sean Lean, who was a really close collaborator with McQueen. He did a lot of the jewelry for a lot of the collections. So I just wanted to give him credit because they're really amazing. So now if we go back one look, we also see this feather motif happening with the pants in look 23. With look 28, we see this really huge, kind of voluminous ostrich feathered dress, and the ostrich feathers are dyed green, which to me it kind of imitates the look of moss. It just looks like a bunch of moss on the model, which connects to the nature theme. When you think of this Norwegian town, you think of the mountains and by the waterfall covered in the moss. And also something really interesting is that with this look, the model is also wearing a coat that is woven with the thermal image of McQueen himself. It's his face. He was photographed by Jonathan Fayers. I think that's how you pronounce it. I could be wrong, sorry. It's just a really sick detail that I think a lot of people miss. So now continuing with this theme of nature, McQueen is going from the sea to the ocean. So now there's a lot of looks that involve sea life. He uses shells specifically. A little fun fact, McQueen was inspired to use shells in the collection while he was at the beach in Norfolk, England with his boyfriend, and the beach was covered in razor clam shells. And that's something that we will also get to later. Look 42 is this gorgeous bodice made out of mussel shells. And to me, that's what makes McQueen such a legendary designer. You know, he's using these unconventional materials in a way that you wouldn't even be able to tell that these are shells. It just looks like a beautifully constructed bodice. And you see the muscle shells again in look 44, this time in the shape of a skirt. The model is kind of just like smacking it around, you know, adding to this whole insane theme and energy going on in the show. And this is not the last time you're gonna see models destroying shells, because with look 33, this is kind of like halfway through the collection. Erin O'Connor, she has 2 looks in this show, both like the most iconic from this collection. And with this look, she is wearing this dress made of razor clam shells, like I mentioned before, that McQueen had found at the beach. And right before she went out, McQueen told her, when you go out there, I want you to just run your hands through the dress and rip it apart, you know, tear it apart. And that's what she does. And it really is such a smart choice, because this performance, it helps embody that theme of losing yourself, something that McQueen was going through at the time. When I see this part of the show, to me, there's something so beautiful about it. Tearing all the razor clam shells off and breaking them. The way I see it is that you're going through this really rough patch. You just have to destroy, and then you get to that release. And it's freeing. You know, you can't be reborn if you don't die first. And there's an interview with Erin O'Connor, the model herself, talking with Nick Knight, a famous fashion photographer. He worked a lot with McQueen too. And I'll just let her speak for it, because she describes exactly how I felt about it.
It was stripping away sort of the pain and the armour, and just going, here I am, you know. Yeah. And it was so dramatic, and you can see from that image, I've kind of surrendered. I'm right there at the end, and I've just gone.
What makes this even more beautiful is that she comes out all by herself. The lights in the room go off, and it's just one light shining on her as she does this ritual. Now she is free. There's no more pain. I know for a fact that when she was running her hands through the clamshells, obviously she cut her hands up, she was bleeding. And O'Connor herself said that like, when she got off, she didn't notice until she got off stage. She was like so full of the adrenaline. And McQueen saw it, and he apologized. He was like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I did not mean for you to get injured like that. And she's like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. This is the part I'm not sure about. Apparently, he grabbed her hands and put it on the bandages, on the bandage hood wrap that she had on, to cover it with blood. And I'm not sure, because later on in her second look, we're gonna talk about that later, I really couldn't see any bloody marks. Maybe this is it. I'm not sure. Maybe they might have just changed her head wrap. So now we're gonna take a look at look 65 from the collection. And the model is wearing this skirt that's constructed from 80 polished black oyster shells. Again, beautiful use of the shells. And she also has a neck piece, which I know for a fact that one was made by Sean Lean. And it's made out of, I believe it has like Tahitian pearls on it, and I think it's metal. I don't know what type of metal, but when she's in the show and she's walking, there's a part where she kind of like plays with the spikes and she's biting on it. I love a lot of the models that McQueen uses because they're so talented. They always know how to really embody the theme of the show, the character. With this model, you know, she's really getting into that like, fuck pain, I don't care. This is fun. Now there's a dress on top of the oyster shell skirt, and it's actually made from panels from an antique Japanese silkscreen that I believe McQueen found at a market in London. Now this next quote is from a book called Savage Beauty. It's a great resource if you want to learn more about McQueen. And about the look, they said, the delicate panels, richly embroidered with flowers and birds, were removed from the screen, and without being reshaped in any way, used flat over an underdress of polished oyster shells. The original Japanese design and craftsmanship were thus preserved, yet metamorphosed into a piece of unexpected visual and tactile juxtapositions. I don't want to dive into the whole topic of cultural appropriation just because it will take a lot of time, but it obviously is an important discussion. And with McQueen, I think that when McQueen would take inspiration from the East, he was really inspired by Japan and India. To me, it's done in a very respectful. Obviously, I'm not Asian, so I don't know. If you're Asian and you want to leave your thoughts down, please. I would love, like, we need people from different perspectives. You know, that's what's important. Like, is it okay what he's doing? But I think, from what I'm seeing, is that he really does it in an appreciative way. He never tries to claim it as his own thing. He acknowledges the inspiration. He doesn't try to disgrace it in any way for the sake of fashion. You could tell that he genuinely just loves and appreciates the beauty of this culture and wants to apply it into his work without dirtying it or sullying it in any way. And that is going to lead us into another part of the show that I do want to mention, because I think it's important. It's not necessarily a theme, but it is a heavy inspiration, and that is the Oriental inspirations within the collection. So now we're looking at looks 56, 57, and 60. These all have appliqued chrysanthemum roundels. I do not know how to pronounce that second word. So this design, from what I read, is really significant in Asian culture, specifically Japan during the Edo period. Now, of course, I'm not familiar with Asian fashion that in depth, so if I do get something wrong, please correct me. But from what I'm seeing with look 56, it kind of has this kimono style, but in a warrior way, if that makes sense. And that was something that was really important to McQueen in a lot of his work. He always talked about how with his designs, he wanted women to feel empowered. You know, the clothes were like an armor for them. And to me, look 56 is the epitome of that. And with look 57, again, I could be wrong, please correct me. He uses the chrysanthemum roundels on this skirt. And to me, this skirt really resembles kind of like the panels that you see on samurai. I don't know if that is what he's referencing, but that's what it looks like. And then with look 60, it does seem to be this traditional Japanese dress, and it's really beautiful. You see the feathers again, kind of spouting out from the bottom. Now, I don't exactly understand where the Oriental inspiration comes into play with the collection, but it seems to be really important. Some of the most gorgeous pieces from the show have it. It could be that he finds nature really beautiful in Asia, or it could just be that the design of it with the use of the flowers fits into that nature theme. I'm not sure. If you have any ideas or any guesses, please comment. I would love to hear it. Now we have look 10. It's this gray silk dress that also has a Japanese design embroidered onto it, and this rectangular headpiece, you can't miss it. It has real amaranthus on it. I don't know how to say that. It's a type of plant. From what I found, the plant can be used for food, but if you use the plant as a whole, it can be used to make medicine. So there you see again this medical theme and health theme that McQueen has going on with Voss. Also, another thing that I think is really important in understanding Japanese traditional fashion is that while Western fashion, you know, like in certain parts of Europe and in the US, the dress is used to emphasize the wearer's body. Garments such as the kimono are used more so to lessen the wearer's presence. And McQueen respects that idea, especially here with this dress. He's rejecting the natural body shape. It's very flat, and there's these insane sleeves. Everything is being wrapped, and the huge headpiece. So that's why before I was saying that, to me, McQueen isn't really appropriating it. He's very respectful in the ideas and approaches of the fashion that he's inspired by. Now we're covering the last theme, and that is the medical theme of the collection. It's really important to note how the models have been walking throughout the show. They look lost. They look like they've been out of it. Kind of like how you might imagine these patients in this asylum. Also, something important to note is the bandage head wraps that all the models have been wearing in the collection, which might be based on Adolphe de Mayer's 1935 photograph. It was for an ad for Elizabeth Arden. Could be that, or it could just be that McQueen was like, yeah, bandage wraps, hospital, makes perfect sense. And of course, the setting of the runway itself is very medical in its nature. You know, it's an asylum. Now we're gonna be covering the looks specifically. Now with look 36, you have this sick puzzle top, and it's made out of puzzles. I think it's so interesting how McQueen uses it, because it does remind me of, you know, like the recreational rooms in mental health facilities where they put the patients in, and you know, there's puzzles, there's games for them to play, deck of cards, all these things, and you're going to be seeing these in the next few looks. So this one, it's a puzzle top, and the puzzle itself is depicting a Neuschwanstein castle. I don't know how to say that, and it is actually a real castle in Germany. And although it's in Germany, I can't help but relate it to Voss in Norway. Maybe it's just that European vibe I'm getting off of it. But the Neuschwanstein castle is used in a lot of puzzles. So I am, without a doubt, pretty sure that almost every mental health institution has this exact puzzle in a rec room somewhere. But to me, I'm not sure, I could be wrong. It looks like it's made out of wood. I'm pretty sure it is wood, but I think it's also made out of like popsicle sticks. Going back to using the materials you find in a rec room and that construction, playing with the popsicle sticks. I don't know if it is popsicle sticks though, it could just be wood. And then with looks 69 through 71 and also 73, I am not sure, because again, I could not find anything to verify it, and the video is kind of like not bad quality, but not the best quality, so it's hard to see little details like that. But I think that these designs they see as a part of the clothes are made out of cards from a deck. Again, that rec room, all the little games, all these materials that you find there. Little kudos to McQueen. Obviously, sometimes the commercial things aren't always the best, but of course they're necessary for a brand to continue living in the way our society operates. That's something that's really cool about McQueen. He really knew how to balance that creativity, the artistry, with the commercial. So you could easily sell some of these dresses and garments. You just take off the cards. Like yeah, that was for this show. I'm sure if you wanted to buy it with the cards, you could, but I'm pretty sure that when they were selling these, it was without the cards. We've come to the last look, which is look 76. And this probably has to be one of my favorite looks in all of fashion history. I'm telling you, if I had the opportunity to wear the dress, I would totally wear the dress. I mean, it's so sick. Like, do you not see it? It's again worn by the amazing model Erin O'Connor. So the dress has two parts to it. The skirt is dyed ostrich feathers, goes from red to black. And then the bodice is made out of microscope slides that are hand painted red. Again, going back to that scientific medical theme that he has going on with the collection. But when you really go deep into it, these red colors that he's been using, he's used it before. Sorry, forgot to mention, quick mention before we talk about this. There's a lot of glasswork pieces made by Columbia Glassworks in East London. So they did an impeccable job with them. They're gorgeous. I wasn't really sure how these fit with the collection, but after really looking at look 76, I think we'll be able to understand how they play into it. So with Erin O'Connor's dress, the microscope slides and they're painted red, and it's hinting at this idea of blood under the skin. There's blood under everything. I mean, just look at the whole show before this moment. There's been this theme of viciousness, being careful because nature's always there to hurt you. We saw it with the bird dress, getting right under her bandages. And even with Erin O'Connor's first look with the razor clamshell dress, the woman actually cut herself during it, and she was bleeding. Pain for the sake of beauty. And McQueen himself said that in an interview with The Observer magazine. There's blood beneath every layer of skin. And with this dress, you really see it, it looks like she's been cut with these glass things. We're looking inside her body, at the blood inside of it, which takes us back to the glasswork pieces. At least with the bodice, it looks like we're seeing the inside of the model, the blood in the body, all the veins inside. There's this scrutiny of the self, of the body, of beauty on the two looks that she modeled. O'Connor said in an interview, "It was an asylum. I was a different character in the sense that with the shells, I was in charge of my illness. That's how I interpreted it. I was breaking free. And with the red dress, a deep sort of sensual vermilion red, it was far more whimsical. It alluded more to the fragility of a human being and a woman possessed. And my movements were different." Just goes to show how talented O'Connor really is. You know, she understands that there's more to modeling than just walking really fancily. There's acting to it, at least in cases such as McQueen, and you have to bring these characters to life. And obviously what she said about what the dresses themselves meant and how they felt, I think you should take that as she said it. The woman wore the dresses herself. And when I saw the show, I understood exactly what she meant. After O'Connor walks out, the lights turn back off, and the audience probably thinks that this is all over, but it's not, because do not ignore the weird, creepy, dirty box in the middle of the other box. And that takes us to the finale. The soundtrack of a pulsing heartbeat came on. It kept going until there's a flat line monotone. Death. That is when the glass box shattered. Inside the box was the body of a plus-size woman. The woman was Michelle Ollie, a fetish writer. She was reclining on a chair in this graceful pose, embracing who she was, her beauty. When you see her, I know that it can come off as very disturbing, very shocking. When you look at it for a few moments after, there is something very graceful in the way that she is posing. Kind of like, this is me. This is my beauty. It's very similar to that of a Botticelli painting. Moths flew out of the box after it shattered. Also interesting that he uses moths instead of butterflies. The ones that are considered the ugly butterflies instead of the beautiful ones. And then the lights began to dim, leaving the audience to really think about beauty. Oh, what is it? We just saw like 70 something models that are considered some of the most gorgeous women in the industry, hell, maybe even the planet. And we're left with this as our last image. Well, what really is beauty? What's beautiful? Not to sound cliche, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The finale itself is a direct reference to Joel Peter Wickens' Sanitarium piece. It almost looks like a spitting image. Quoting Wickens himself when he was describing the photograph, "There is for me in this situation a strange, terrible sense of being forced to view the events in rooms of asylums or places of torture. But most importantly, it is a depiction of an egoless being, a shaman in existence here and beyond." It makes me wonder if McQueen resonated with that, if he saw that when he was designing the collection and coming up with this finale. I think it's so smart the way that he ends the show, because it's very similar to how it began. The audience was forced to view themselves. They couldn't really see anything else. It was the only thing there, themselves. They didn't want to see themselves. Why? Could it be that they're insecure? They think they're ugly. They don't want to look at themselves for an hour. And in the end, same thing. They have nowhere else to look. They're forced to look at the only thing in front of them, this naked, fat woman. Also, there's nothing wrong with being fat. But for these people, it does make them uncomfortable. I want to conclude this video with a piece from Ollie. She wrote in her own diary, actually, a day after the show. And she said, "I want people to know what I just went through wasn't a breeze. And I did it for art. Yes, art. Because I believe it's worth going through that much palaver if it creates a strong image that conveys an important idea. And I believe that the idea that we are trapped by our civilized," that's in quotes, "socially approved identities is massively important. It causes women so much suffering, fear of aging, fear of not being thin enough, fear of not having the right clothes, fear of our animal natures that we carry in our DNA, fish, bird, lizard, insect, mammal. We've never had it more techno, we've never needed it more human. We humans, living now, still cannot turn ourselves into perfect beings, no matter how long we spend at the gym, beauty parlor, shops, etc." I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This really was a huge project for me to take on. I'm busy, obviously, with other stuff, but it's just something that I'm really passionate about. So I hope that you enjoyed it and that this was all worth it. There's still so much to this show, and obviously I didn't cover everything. I only covered a little bit of this work of art. So if you know anything else about it, or you notice anything that I missed, please comment it so we could all learn about it. I think it's important that we get together as a community, help each other. And please, if I had anything wrong, correct me. It was my analysis of it. It was research, my own interpretations of things. But hey, I'm just a 17-year-old kid, so what do I know? I hope you'll subscribe, like the video, and hopefully I'll see you in another one. Peace.